Hey, you like cars? Back again. You know you waited. You know you've been waiting for me to come back. So, another episode. You know what time it is. Let me go ahead and do my thing. So, we got episode 60, CarQuicks podcast. Welcome back. Welcome back. I'm feeling good today, energized, feeling well rested. Hope you're doing well with your family, friends, loved ones, kids, children, all of that. As usual, you're here with me, Cameron Biggs, your host, CarQuicks podcast. If you haven't already, if you haven't followed, if you haven't liked, if you haven't left a comment, if you haven't been following the movement, we are 60 episodes in now, and we're not going to stop, okay? When 100 comes, I'm going to have to do something. I don't know. I might do a live podcast, skydiving. I'm just joking. But we're here, episode 60, CarQuicks podcast. We're driving right in. We just jump right into the news. And we got something cool. Not a very big news week, but there is a few interesting tidbits to throw in there. Now, I'm going to start off with one of the most exciting ones for me personally. So we all know Lexus. We know the Lexus brand. We know the Lexus model. We know the cars and all that. So we are very familiar with who Lexus is and what they do. They are releasing a particular car. And before we get overly excited, because it's only for the Japanese market, which makes, Lexus was made for the American market. I know it's in Japan now, but it was initially made for the American market. However, they are releasing a particular car that will not grace our shores, and it is called the LBX Morizo RR. Now, if you're like, CarQuicks, that name sounds familiar. Isn't there a GR Corolla Morizo edition? Yes, there is. There is a Morizo edition. But what Lexus has done here is that they are releasing the underpinnings of the GR Corolla inside of I say compact SUV, but I don't want to use that term because when I say compact SUV, it's not really SUV. It's very much still a hatchback, as you can see from the picture, but it's still kind of seated a little bit higher, so people are going to say SUV. It's 300 horsepower, same drivetrain, G16E GTS engine, and it still has a 6-speed manual as an option alongside of the new automatic that I talked about the GR Corolla is going to get. This is nice. I like how this looks. I like the Lexus badge behind it. Unfortunately, though, we're not going to get it. And I don't know why. I kind of do know why. we already have the GR Corolla. So I know that Toyota in general is probably thinking about Lexus brand name, right? Who really buying Lexuses? We sell a lot of SUVs and a lot of sedans. Are we really selling a hot hatch that will cost probably $55,000 if it follows all of what the Morizo had as far as the drivetrain goes, which doesn't really change much. The Morizo had different gearing on the transmission, a little bit more torque, but overall we're talking about the same exact motor and car. But I do see that there's a market for it. There are people that let's say, for instance, I know somebody that is in a group chat of ours that traded in his GR Corolla for an Integra Type S, another amazing car. I love the Integra Type S. If you take that better interior, quality of sound system, guaranteed is blowing away whatever we got from JBL. Then you add better color options, deeper color, maybe higher quality of paint, the Lexus service model. Because if you go to a Lexus dealership, that type of treatment is only at a Lexus dealership. Toyota going to have you, you're going to sit over there in the waiting room with the rest of the kids. So if you take that idea of that service, that Lexus, the better interior, a guaranteed better interior materials, leather, probably more sound deadening, a little bit quieter inside, it's not going to be that raw experience that some of us went to go get a GR Corolla for, right? So let's not get that confused. I'm not saying that this replaces the GR Corolla. What I'm saying is, if there are people that are saying, man, I wish it was a little bit bigger, a little bit more utility, a little bit nicer inside, the Lexus LBX Morizo RR would answer that question, and you don't lose the manual. I think this is a really awesome vehicle. I think it should come to the U.S. maybe in limited form. I think it should be like a special order thing. If you're already building a GR Corolla in the same factory that probably this will be built up until it probably gets sent to Lexus to have them finish the body, or maybe they do everything in that same Morizo factory, and then do a little special order on the little Lexus LBX one. But that is what Toyota released and announced recently. I think it was really cool. It's also nice to see that they are standing behind this vehicle, this platform, this engine. It ain't going anywhere. It's not some niche thing that lasts a couple years and then it fades away into the darkness, and then we got to fight tooth and nail to find some parts for the car. So good to see them offering that option inside of Lexus. But keeping up with the luxury theme, right? And maybe it comes to America, you never know. But keeping up with the luxury theme, I wanted to spend some time talking about the new Cadillac Escalade. Now, we already know Escalades, right? It's not, listen, if you from my era, I put Lamborghini doors on the Escalade, low pro, so low, they look I'm riding on blades. That's what 50 Cent said with Game and the song, This Is How We Do It. Not how we do, I forgot the name of that song. Whatever. You know what I'm talking about. If you're from 03, Get Rich or Die Trying there with The Game, Dr. Dre, all that, you know what song I'm talking about. The Escalade has been the Escalade for the test of time. It's kind of like old, right? Like the Escalade is big, truck on, body on frame type. They changed it now, obviously, that has independent front suspension and things like that. But the ethos of what the Escalade is, big, truck, boxy, very American luxury. It's used for chauffeuring. Plenty of celebrities and artists and everybody are inside of either Tahoes or Escalades or Denali's. We already know what they are. But the new Escalade for 2025 adds some very, I will say, polarizing. I'll say some of it is cool, but we're going to get to that. The outside of it is basically the same, save for the front end has better LED lights, different design that takes from design cues from the Lyric, which is their all-electric SUV, and the Celestiq, Celestiq. I think it's called Celestiq or Celstiq. It is their $300,000 electric, I think it's hybrid. I haven't talked about this car in a long time, and it's such a rare piece that you're not really going to hear much about it, but it's Cadillac's moonshot, right? They are producing a car that is aimed at Rolls-Royce, Bentley, and Maybach buyers, okay? Maybach buyers. Those three, contenders are who they're going after. They're going after the upper reaches of luxury. So they took some design cues from those headlights and from the Lyric, put them on the front of the Escalade for 2025. We have, you can see LED grills. It looks like an Escalade. It looks luxurious. It looks nice. But that is really not what the all talk has been about. Engines have been the same. We're talking about a 420 horsepower V8. You still can get the V Series Escalade, which has a 682 horsepower supercharged 6.2 liter V8, which is a whole lot of horsepower. I've seen videos of people modifying these V Cadillacs, and they should not be moving this fast for how big they are. 10-speed automatic, both motors, the standard V8, which is 420 horsepower, and the supercharged one. But now we're going to get to the inside. Oh, before we do that, standard wheels are 22 inches, optional are 24s. We have made it to the 24s, even though I think some cars probably got 26. This coming. They're just inching their way closer and closer to the one day. I say this jokingly, but not too long ago, 20s were really a thing. I got 20s on a minivan, just so you know where we're at. There's going to be a time in 26, 28, maybe even 30s becomes a thing. I know that sounds absolutely nuts, but back to what I was talking about. The main thing about this Escalade is the interior. You're probably wondering, what's the big deal about the interior? Well, let me tell you something. I know I've been talking about screens on dashboards for a while. I've made my own comments about it. I've said it's a little extra. I've said some of this stuff we need to dial it back a bit. I've talked about the idea that a lot of manufacturers took away buttons to just bring them back, realizing that screens and things like that aren't what everybody needs. I've talked about Jeep putting a bunch of screens in cars where their history of reliability on electronics hasn't been enough for me to even trust that they could even sustain such technologies, right? So the Escalade has a 55-inch curved display. And I'm going to repeat that again. A 55-inch curved display. No, this is not 2006 in the era of curved Samsungs, okay, with 3D glasses. Glad we got past that. I'm talking about a pillar-to-pillar display for the driver, the center console, and the passenger. This is, look at the screen, look at the picture. This is as ridiculous as we can get. The next step from here is that there will be no dashboard. It will literally be a curved, flowing dashboard with information flying around it. And don't hesitate. Don't even doubt that they won't do something like that, because if we get to the point of you're not even having to drive and you can just sit there and look at information, which is, how much information do you really need to look at when you're driving? Other than streaming YouTube or Netflix. But I digress. Back to the screen. 55 inches on the front. 35-inch display just for the driver across. That then overlaps into the center console. And then the passenger gets a 20-inch screen that they can stream media on, from Netflix, YouTube, I'm sure maybe even live TV. You probably can even hook up a game console to that screen and get to playing whatever you want. We also have the screens behind the headrest. Don't think that the rear passengers didn't get the executive package, because the luxury in the new Escalade has been upped even further. So the rear captain seats, they get their own tray that comes out in front of them, like, airplane first class seat, or not even first class seat. Coach has those now. But tray that comes out in the plane, captain seats, screens behind the driver and the passenger in the front row. We have 20 inches for the passenger, 35 for the driver. We then have another center console screen that they called, and I got to look this up, the name of this. They called this the front command center. So there's a screen on the front that controls all the things of the cars. And same thing like on any one of our cars. We got the main screen that has Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, same thing as Escalade has. And then it has all the little things that you need to control, HVAC controls, dual zone climate, heated, cooled, massaging seats. I'm sure it has all of that. So we have that now in the screen on the center console next to wireless charging and cup holders. The steering wheel is now redesigned. It also shifts the gear selector back to the column like the old days, three on the stick, as I used to say. So we have gear selector back on the column, screen in the center console, 35 inches for the driver, another 20 for the passenger, 55 inches across. It's nothing but screen on the dashboard. Fingerprints, listen, I've said it and I'll say it again. I need to stop saying it. Listen, there's something coming. I'm going to start making some merch. I'm making some driving gloves, and they're going to be made for fingerprints, okay? Because 55-inch screens, pillar to pillar, come on now. Ridiculous. But here's where I'm going to give some positive. If the future look is what you want, if you're looking at Escalades like, listen, I'm here to see luxury, future, screens, LEDs, OLEDs, massaging seats, then I can see you looking at this and saying, you know what? That looks awesome. That's cool. If I can use all of my 35 inches as a driver for something else when the car is parked, let's say you're a driver for a service, right? You're at the airport picking up a client. If I can sit in this Escalade and fire up that 35 inches and say, well, I want to see a video, a movie or YouTube or something like that, and it could take up the whole screen, I ain't mad. I don't know how that's going to look, because we're talking about a very ultra wide, stretched out screen. But it's because of the sound system that also comes in this Escalade that I would imagine that somebody's got to be looking at some media other than listening to the music. So it has a 19-speaker AKG sound system that comes stock on the Escalade. Good. 19 speakers. I got, let me see, 1, 2. I got like 6 in the Corolla. And the van has, I think, 12-speaker JBL system. So we got 19 from AKG. I already know the sounds very good. But there is another option. See, they didn't just go beyond. They went to a spot that is borderline an IMAX movie theater. We got the 55-inch screen, and then you have an optional 36 or 40 speaker sound system. Listen, 40 speakers, 40. I don't even know what to expect playing some music through there. Then you got 55 inches on the front dashboard, plus the screens in the back. It's an IMAX theater on wheels. We are now at the movie theater on wheels. I mean, this has to sound incredible. So I'm not mad at the screens for the sake of it being on this Escalade and what they're headed towards. But I'm still gonna have my critique being it's still too many screens everywhere. Escalade, luxury, this kind of niche, not niche vehicle, but this is aimed at a very certain subset of people. I'm not mad at it. I'll give them the pass on the idea that we need to have 55 inches of curved display on an SUV. But when it starts trickling down to the normal cars and everything is a screen, it is still distracting. I'm not going to back off of that idea. If we have 35-inch screen on my end and my passenger has a 20-inch screen that I can actually see from my peripherals, plus the command center screen, they're over there watching Dragon Ball Z, and I'm looking at Goku charging up, and I'm supposed to keep my eye on the road. It's a lot going on. But hey, there might be a time when you can look because these come with Super Cruise for a 3-year subscription. So at those moments when I'm on them long road trips, some long highways where I can let my hands completely go, then I guess maybe you could sit back and just be like, yeah, let me watch a couple episodes of One Piece, or something like that. I don't know. But what I do know is that it's a lot happening on this dashboard and the fingerprints are going to be outrageous. So the Escalade is coming. They didn't talk about the price of it, but I don't think you really got to even ask yourself how much an Escalade is going to cost. Base 80, 90,000. I mean, you're not walking into Cadillac asking for the Escalade and expecting to get the Lyric price tag or ATS price tag or whatever small SUV they have. You're asking for the big boy, big body, big money. So it comes into territory. Another thing that's been going on with good old Fisker. So Fisker, just a quick little news input right here. Fisker has been granted from a judge the ability to fire sale the remaining inventory of Fisker Ocean, which is about 4,000 some odd units are still available, to a leasing company, or it's a leasing firm based out of New York, for $14,000 a piece, which would give them like $46 million or something in the end that will go to the bankruptcy. Dog, it was over before, but now when you hear about $50,000 to $60,000 SUVs that no less than 30 days ago were being sold for full price are now on a fire sale for $14,000. I can't even imagine the people who bought these SUVs at full price. I would be reneging on that deal. Okay, I'd be like, yo, come and repo this immediately. Okay, come pick this up right now. So now you're going to probably see at some point there's going to be some probably leased Fiskers that are going to go out. I'm pretty sure it's going to ride sharing, probably going to a taxi service, probably going to a car service. That's not a bad idea. If you're a leasing firm or you're a company that's looking at these and saying, hey, maybe I can spin up a pickup car service in New York, lease these things out, don't got to worry about the maintenance, charge a certain fee to pick people up. That's probably where they're going to end up if they don't end up in taxis or the landfill, unfortunately, with the way things are going. But going back to something a little bit more cooler as far as the news goes, but keeping up with like electric plug-in hybrid, the Volkswagen Auto Group has been fairly busy, right? They've been busy putting the same motor in a lot of different cars. So I was reading some news on Car and Driver about the new Bentley Flying Spur. So the Bentley Flying Spur is getting a new update. And if you don't know what that is, the Flying Spur, and I'll just throw up an old picture of it here if you're watching on video, the Flying Spur is their 4-door luxury car, right? It's just like the Rolls-Royce Phantom or, the Ghost. Flying Spur. I've always liked the Flying Spur. Very nice, classy. So they're going to update this as a facelift. They didn't show what it's going to look like or what it's going to be. But the main point of me discussing this is that it's getting a plug-in hybrid option that's taking away the W12. And pour out one for the W12 and all the V12s because they're coming to an end. Volkswagen ain't making the W12 anymore. You got a few other companies that are still making 12-cylinder engines. So listen, if you got the money, go support them because there ain't going to be too much longer that we're going to be doing this. But They got rid of the W12. So the replacement is a plug-in hybrid that they call the Ultra Performance Hybrid. Listen, these names are pretty funny. I'll be honest. I would rather you just call it the PHEV that it is. Just say it's a plug-in hybrid. But they always get these names: Ultra Performance Hybrid, Super Performance Hybrid, Amazing Performance Hybrid. It's always some name that's like, all right, man, I get it. Plug-in hybrid. So it has a standard twin-turbo V8 that makes 584 horsepower. And it then has an electric motor on it that makes another 187. And that brings us to a grand total of 771 horsepower, 738 foot-pounds of torque. That's a lot. A flying Spur, even though it probably weighs 5,000, 6,000 pounds of sound deadening and double pane glass and luxury, that's still going to be a fast-moving, cruising, Autobahn style car. Similar to what I talked about in my last episode about the M5. I was talking about the M5 becoming that luxury, grand touring, long-distance runner. So this plug-in hybrid setup, it gives people about 51 miles of pure EV range, and that's by the European standards, which is like WLPTA standards, but the EPA standards are different. They're a little bit more aggressive, so it's more like 40 miles if you're thinking our standards. And then you can get up to 87 miles per hour if you're in this mode, in EV mode. But if it sounds familiar, if the 771 sounds familiar, it's because it's in another car too. It's also inside of the Porsche Panamera. It's also inside of the Lamborghini Urus SE, which was a plug-in hybrid of the Lamborghini Urus, which made 789 horsepower. So we got the Flying Spur, the Porsche Panamera, the Lamborghini Urus, all three using the exact same plug-in hybrid motor. Volkswagen is putting this thing out like it's a coupon. They're like, yo, you said you wanted a high horsepower plug-in hybrid? There you go, get that engine. Hey, I heard you wanted it too? Oh, you thinking about a plug-in that? Yeah, we got you the engine right here. Come grab one too. It's a parts bin thing happening now. But, I mean, high horsepower cars, Volkswagen is definitely not going to make bespoke motors for each one of the companies that they own. They have too many under their umbrella. They're going to pass this motor around. So if you hear more and more cars that are coming out and you hear this same number, this 771, 789 plug-in hybrid, and it's under the Volkswagen Auto Group, same motor, guaranteed. So before I get up out of here, like I said, it's a short one, okay? But I'm back to getting my little consistency back, okay? So the GR Corolla, actually, speaking of the GR Corolla, it's a little bit of a side story. Today, before I recorded this, we were going to put some parts on with a friend of mine, but we discovered something going on with his GR Corolla when it comes to a diff that was seeping oil we saw. Odd thing that we noticed somebody else on the forums might have had the same issue too. So we're going to go check that out. So we kind of stopped all the putting the parts on that I was recording today, but we're going to get back to that later. So if anybody's asking where the GR Corolla videos, listen, they're coming. I'm busy. I'm doing other things. I like doing my podcast probably the most. Then I got car review stuff coming. I'm doing the Sienna in the style I want. I just put up the BYD video. I am proud of that video. So if anybody's wondering other things I do as far as content goes, this podcast is not the only thing I do talking about the car news. I also shoot things talking about the GR Corolla build and the things I add to that car. And then I also have a series now coming called Past the Fob. Now, Past the Fob was like, I was thinking about a Missy Elliott song, Pass That Dutch. So I was just in my head thinking about something. I was talking like Pass the Keys, like, you know, Future and Jay-Z, I got the keys. But not every car has keys, so Pass the Fob. This is going to be my series that I go to use to review cars. My end goal for this podcast, one of my end goals, not my end goal, because I'm not going to stop doing this. One of my goals is to get to the point of being invited into these car press events to review and talk about the car and give my spin on it. Okay. Number one, nobody really looks like me doing this. And I have a better spin for me, my own personality. People like it. They listen. They want to see it. So the BYD video was true guerrilla style vlog. I was in Monterrey, Mexico. They have BYD cars there. I've talked about them on plenty of episodes when it comes to electric cars and the tariffs they put on them and how people feel about the Chinese car company trying to come into the U.S., so on and so forth. So I was there in Mexico, saw they had a dealership, and I was like, I'm going to run in there. We ran in there. It was like 5 o'clock. They're closing like in 30 or 40 minutes. And we just like, I just turned the camera on, put the mic on, and just got to talking. Never seen the car before. It was a BYD Song Plus, DMI-I model. And I basically burned through just looking at it, fiddling around with it, playing around with it, really guerrilla style. Not as informative as I would normally like when it comes to the videos that I want to do. But I also do not want to do car review videos where it's just me spitting out stats. And I watch so many of them. I watch Car Connections, there's Confections. I watch Redline Reviews, Doug DeMuro, Smoking Tire. I watch Jason Camisa, Carmageddon. I listen to all of them. I watch all of them. So I want to add another spin to it. I follow some people on Instagram too, Forrest Car Reviews. I like his stuff. He does a lot of those shorts, right? Like 1 minute videos on the cars and just knocks it out right quick and in a hurry. There's another one I follow on TikTok. It's like Moms and Car Reviews. She reviews a lot of cars for families and SUVs. I'm telling you, I'm neck deep in the car review YouTuber TikTok era. So I know what they're doing. I know what people are bringing to the table. I want to bring my own spin to it. So BYD is the first one. I'm going to use my own van. Use what you got, as they say. If you're trying to start something, use what you got. I've already kind of done that with the GR Corolla when it came to the 2,000, 9,000, 15,000, and 30,000 mile videos. So that kind of gives you a taste of how I want to approach this. Very kind of conversational, me talking to you, looking at the camera saying, hey, you want a minivan? You need to buy one. If you got more than 2 kids, stop playing yourself. We're going to get there. So you see a little taste. So past the fob, I'll put that first video out. The second one's going to be on our Sienna van and me talking about how much I love it. And then the next part that I'm probably doing for myself on the car is going to be a throttle controller from Engine, because it hasn't been discussed. It is a little bit controversial when it comes to how people think about it. Some people think it's snake oil, but the people that really use these and know it, or the few people I know have a GR Corolla that understand how much delay we have in our throttle input if you stomp on the gas, and what happens between the throttle plate opening by drive-by-wire and when the car goes, you understand that there is a delay. If you drive a person's car that has this, it is like instantaneous. It doesn't change the parameters and force the car to do something it hasn't done. It's basically like more memory RAM to the computer chip to say, hey, react faster. But we'll get to that in that video and episode when that part comes in. There's more podcast episodes coming, and there's live streams coming when I finally get the setup and to just do it, which is me doing specs on cars and configurations, auto configurators. I've said it over and over again. I've said it so much, you're probably listening to this podcast like, bro, if you don't just go and do it, like, it's been enough. So that's the end for my little updates there. Another week is coming. There's some interesting news coming out next week. So I'm waiting to see what they announce, but got to get podcasts out episode, like I said, every week. And I've been slacking, but I have stuff lined up. So as I always say, do as you wish and do as you may. It's Cameron Biggs, your host. This is CarQuicks. I'll be back for another one. Peace.